Whose game is it?
Alabama! But to be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo!
Here comes Alabama.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. We have gone back in time to 2007, and we have just lost what the equivalent was to losing Milroe here with the Vanderbilt Commodores. First of all, shout out to Clark Lee and his Vanderbilt Commodores for coming in prepared, wanting it, disciplined, and taking it very seriously. Hats off to them. Before we get started, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to be here for a minute, folks, so be sure, live chat. Let's go ahead and get things rocking. Let us know what you think. We're going to try to break down everything. We'll try to make sense of it when it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But, hey, we're here to be your consolation people. And, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Justin Riley. With me today is the illustrious Daniel Petty from Opening Kick, Cici Payne from Crimson Dynasty, and the newest addition to the Bama Star Network. We got John in the house. What's going on, y'all?
That's a good question.
I'm just going to say one thing. I'm a possession. Vanderbilt 42 minutes and 8 seconds. Alabama 17 minutes and 52 seconds.
That's pathetic.
Can you also throw in there that Vanderbilt only punted twice this entire contest? Essentially, that means our defense tonight, for lack of a better term, was merely just a prop, just to facilitate what looked like a football game, because they sure enough didn't stop anything. And it's got all of us in Bama Nation questioning the integrity of this 4-2-5 system under Kane Womack, as well as his ability as a play caller. Because tonight we got schooled, out schemed, out coached. We were bullied up and down the field. There is no question about that. And we took it and we liked it. Folks, we always start our show with talking about expectations versus reality. Going into the game, what we expected. And going into this game, what we really were expecting was an opportunity for some other guys to emerge, an opportunity for our run game to get established, which, of course, it didn't. We were looking for someone other than Ryan Williams to step up and be that guy who could take pressure off of him. Again, it was Ryan Williams trying to do it his whole damn self, and no one else stepped up. So we're going to try our best to navigate through this, and we'll answer questions as we can manage them. First of all, we're going to give a shout out to our super fan, Jimmy Clay, $25. The sun will come up tomorrow. Roll Tide, roll. The sun will come up tomorrow for sure. But, well, it doesn't take away the pain we're experiencing. Folks on this panel, words can't express what we just witnessed, right? We just came off of one of the biggest highs in the 2024 season. We beat Georgia. We ascended to the #1 ranking in the country. And then we started getting a lot of press clippings saying that we were a lock for the national championship and, of course, playoffs by extension. Then Jalen Milroe ascends to the leaderboard of the Heisman Trophy race. And there was even chatter of Jalen Milroe being the #1 overall pick in this upcoming NFL draft. And then we run into a buzzsaw that is Vanderbilt. We're here to talk about it. Let's go around the room real quick. Let's give our immediate reactions before we kind of try to break it down. We're going to start out with John, then move down to Daniel Petty, then Cici. Talk to me.
I want to start off by saying the offense, I thought, did a good job. I thought Jalen Milroe, you look at his numbers, let me bring them up real quick. I thought he did good. 19 at 25, 312 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. We averaged 4 yards a carry. Ryan Williams, 3 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. I thought the offense was on point. From my opinion, if they had more time on the field, they would have put up even bigger numbers, right? So the offense, in my opinion, was clearly not the issue. We had no answer for Pavia whatsoever, plain and simple. We were not gap sound. We had no idea how to cover the middle of the field, right? They ran on – I know people are going to say gimmick plays and stuff like those aren't gimmick plays. Shovel passes aren't gimmick plays, guys. That's just being disciplined in the middle of the field. That's where Deontay lost, and that's where these guys have to be disciplined and stay in their lanes. If you take one step out of those lanes during when you're covering this type of offense, you're going to get exposed really quickly. Clark Lee did nothing but expose the issue we already knew we had at Alabama, which is sometimes the interior, most of the time the perimeter defense as far as covering the run, and we're not disciplined, right? So in Elijah Pritchett, he got whooped this game. Again, Elijah Pritchett gets exposed a little bit on that right-hand side. And look, we didn't have a lot of calls go our way either. But this was one of those games where I look at it and I say, we just got out-coached. Clark Lee and that team showed up. We didn't have energy. We didn't have enthusiasm. We looked nothing like the team that went and played Georgia, jumping around, hyped, ready to tackle, hitting hard. None of that existed. I would have thought this was two different teams. That's the end of my rant.
Petty, what you got, man?
Man, I joked this week that going and playing Vanderbilt was like a single guy going to a bar trying to get the 10, and then he has a couple of shots and ends up going home with the 5, where you still get the W, but you don't feel good about it. This is where you went to the bar, you took a shot for the 10 and didn't realize the 10 was dating Mike Tyson, and you started talking shit, and then you just got cold cocked unknowingly. And the disappointing thing is, we knew going in what Vanderbilt's mode of attack was. It was going to be that option offense. And it's basically a veer, and then you're running a lot of play action where you're fading guys out in the flats and guys on the crossing route. Well, it's all about assignment football. It didn't look like we knew who had the dive. It didn't look like we knew who had the quarterback. It didn't look like who had the pitch man. And then when we did, we were chasing or missing tackles and letting them fall for 5 or 6 yards. It was the most Bama-like defense I can remember seeing. I could say speechless, but I'm not. I'm more just damn mind blown that it was that ill prepared for that type of offense. Look, give Vanderbilt credit; they ran it to perfection. And John mentioned out of the gate, they had 42 minutes of time of possession. Well, look. There's been 2 games in the SEC where underdogs have won the last week in a row against top 5 programs, and there was a blueprint. It was Kentucky against Ole Miss last week, and now Vanderbilt against Bama this week, where they have one blue. Don't let an explosive offense on the field. Was the defense you've got to get off the field. That's on the defense. Like John said, man, Milroe had a good, efficient game. The offense played well when given the opportunity, but the offense didn't have enough opportunities. You give up 40 damn points to defense. I mean, to Vandy, this is all defense, man. It's just – yeah, but get to credit, Vandy had one way of winning this game, and that's keeping Bama's offense off the field just enough. And hell, to Bama's credit, they still scored 35 and did all they could given the opportunities. But the opportunities just weren't enough by the end of the game, and Vanderbilt did just enough to keep the defense off. But I'm just blown away by the lack of assignment football and where the eyes were on the defense that has the linebackers that have the ability, that has the athleticism, that has a safety like Malachi Moore that can play the run. This is a defense that should be equipped to play an offense like that. And for someone like, look, man, I'm sorry. There's no way to freaking sugarcoat this. That's damn Vanderbilt. Like that's horse shit. I don't care what you say. There's no candy coating losing to this damn team. Like winning ugly, yeah, you don't like it, but you do it, but you still win the game and go on to the next week. That's brutal.
Real quick, we got Del B with another super chat for us, $20. Roll Tide, no defense. CC, you've never been one to hold back your feelings. Basically, we got dominated the entire game. And what was really telling was at one point, I don't know if you guys caught this, but Vandy players were pointing at the scoreboard, asserting their dominance and saying, you know what, guys, we're beating y'all down right now. And there's not a thing you can do about it. And at that point, if someone is doing that to you, disrespecting you, that your history, your number 1 ranking, your very essence, that's where pride's supposed to kick in. Look, you come to Alabama to play these games. I don't want to hear about having a bullseye and everybody's out to get you. You know the assignment when you sign your letter of intent that you are going to be the most sought after team week after week. All right. Well, see, you take over, please. Try to help me make some sense and just tell me your overall feel. Things you saw, things that maybe could have been corrected but weren't. What do you got?
Well, first of all, that was probably the biggest waste of time, to be honest. I mean, I feel like a lot of us could have found something better to do with our time. That's number 1. Number 2, It was completely embarrassing, but we said on the Crimson Dynasty this week, don't overlook Vanderbilt. Seeing how not only did they lose to Missouri in 2 overtimes at Missouri, but then they had a bye week right before this. So to me, I'm like, well, that's pretty much all the motivation that they need. And we know that their QB is good. And my thing is, we're lucky that when we played South Florida, that Byron Brown, that he wasn't better at passing. We're lucky about that he didn't have more targets to pass to. And we're also lucky that Wisconsin's QB1 didn't play, because with what we saw tonight, there's a good chance that we would have saw that then. And I don't know if we would have had, if we would have been able to correct it. But I mean, what I saw on defense, I'm just like, this ain't the same defense. I mean, even the energy, just the way that they were acting, it was something was off. I saw it more on the defensive side. There were, even from the referee's perspective, certain things that weren't called, especially in that first half. Then you have Kobe Prentice that was easily targeting. I saw a couple pass interferences that wasn't called on Vanderbilt, some of the taunting that they were doing. And I'm just like, okay, so now, all of it is kind of working against us. What are we going to do about it? It seems like we were out coached the entire game. We could not manage the clock. We couldn't even keep them off the field. Like our defense, they were what they did to us, we should have been doing to them. The way they ran that ball down our throat, they only have a few targets. Cedric Alexander, that's their main go-to guy if Pavia isn't running the ball. So my thing is that we know who they're going to go to. What are we doing about it? I mean, we just let them just run right on through us, like it's just a little hole in the wall or something. Like we just, it was just so ridiculous. And I'm like, I know this. Okay, either somebody getting paid off, and then we kept slipping, like they didn't, like something was with the. I don't know. I don't know if Hurricane Helene came back and that grass was wet. I don't know what was going on there, but it was just so many things working against us, and we didn't make the right adjustments after halftime, like Kirby Smart did last week against when we played Georgia. They made adjustments at halftime. It seems like we came out in the third quarter with some momentum, of course, all that, but we couldn't keep it. And that was our main question this week on the Crimson Dynasty. Could we keep that momentum going after a huge win against Georgia, or were we going to let that get in our heads? So, I mean, that was embarrassing. The defense, I mean, I don't know the last time I saw our defense play like that, especially against the and I'm not trying to say that Vanderbilt is just horrible, but it's Vanderbilt versus Georgia. And I know I don't see Georgia fans in that chat running their mouths, because if we just lost to Vanderbilt, what does that say about y'all? Because we just beat y'all a week ago. So I'm just saying, like, let's put things into perspective. And Auburn kind of held y'all tonight too for a little bit. So let's pipe down a little bit. But yeah.
Well, listen, and you mentioned Georgia. What gets me is that we can play up to Georgia. We can go one-on-one with some of the greatest talent in America, and we're able to stop them. We're able to come away with a W. Mm-hmm. And then we come up against Vanderbilt, and no disrespect to them, very well coached. I give them all the praise, but talent is significantly less than that of a Georgia, and they flat out dominated us in every meaning of the word. Mm-hmm. I understand the referees made some calls that were kept questionable and then had a direct effect on the game and on drives. Yes, I get that. But ultimately, I've always said this, you don't ever put the game in the hands of a referee. Mm-hmm. And Alabama didn't come in trying to put the game in their hands from the start. It looked like they didn't practice all week, and then this is their first real meaningful practice, and it's a game. You could tell in their body language they didn't really want to be there in the first half. It's like they were just merely existing and thought that, hey, we can just kind of.
We're at the press conference.
Yeah, we just can kind of walk through this. This is Vandy. We'll have a little bit of fun on Broadway, and we'll pack it in. We'll go back home and get ready for the Gamecocks next week. So, but guys, talk to me about your comfort level with the coordinators right now, mainly Kane Womack. What has been evident through 5 games is the lack of adjustments, in-game adjustments by our defensive coordinator. And that's something that has not changed. And it's surprising. After we saw Georgia mount a comeback last week, nearly came away with a victory, you would think that would make the pause button be pressed and make you kind of rethink your strategy. But it didn't. We're just letting people run through us and not adjusting to anything. So start us out, John, and talk to me about Kane Womack. And I know that right now we're caught up in emotions and it's a knee-jerk reaction, but then logic does come into play. If something ain't working, why are you still trying to do it? So where's your comfort level? And then we'll go down to Patty, then Sishi.
So I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. We're young on defense, number one. Well, you can't ignore that, right? So this team should not be held to an expectation that it realistically probably won't hold up to, right? And I think we get blinded by that sometimes. I think sometimes we look at the first half of the Georgia game and go, this is the potential of the defense. And that is the potential of the defense. But realistically, are we going to see that on a game basis? No, probably not. I mean, this is an extremely young back end. The only one with any experience back there really is Malachi Moore, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know people can say, you know what I mean, Keon Sabb. No, he wasn't there last year. This is a new system for almost every one of these players. You know, are we going to really hold this defense to an expectation of greatness from year one? Most people argue yes, because of the talent level. This talent, I would say, 85% of this talent that stepped on that field was not built for a 4-2-5 defense. They were not recruited for a 4-2-5 defense. And I think we have to understand that what we're dealing with is an adjustment period that most Alabama fans don't want to go through, just like every other fan base has to when they swap coaches. There is a period of having to go through growing pains, right? So Deontay Lawson and these guys are used to running pattern matching defenses. You know what I mean? Stuff like this. It's a completely different system. So imagine having to rewire your brain and then readjust. So I'm not going to put this on Kane Womack from the beginning. I'm not going to say it's the 4-2-5 defense. What I'm going to say is we're going through growing pains just like any other human being would have to and any other program would have to. It's just because we have such almost unrealistic expectations because of what we've experienced the past 15 years. That's what we're going to hold them to. And then God forbid us, you know what I mean, like achieve or see that potential like we did against Georgia and then hold them to that standard every single game, even though it's Vanderbilt, right? Clark Lee, that team deserves a ton of credit. But when you look at it at the end of the day, what I want to see from this is it sucks to lose, but I'm going to use logic in this instance and say not Kane Womack, but Kalen DeBoer, show me what you're made of as a coach now, and let's see what that does for the next game. Kane Womack, let's see these adjustments, how, you know what I mean, what's going to happen, and let's see what it goes on to the next game. Look at Jaden Roberts. Guys, I think Jaden Roberts lost his game in this job. You know, Vandermark came in and he never went back out. So, like, it's little things like that we have to start paying attention to and seeing what's happening, not just on the defensive side, on the offensive side as well. There's adjustments. This line's only played together for now 3 straight games, and Jaden Roberts possibly just lost his job to Vandermark. So I think there's a lot more to this than we realize. And, and I think we're not as deep as we think we are on the defense. No. That defensive line, I think,
very thin.
There's not much depth. So I think we got to adjust our expectations and realize what we really are moving forward and hold that expectation versus thinking we're just going to run through everybody. Yeah.
Petty follow-up. As you hear what Jonathan's saying, you're hearing about the expectations and you hear that the ceiling or how good it can be was put on display in the first half against Georgia. Absolutely amazing. So kind of 2 things here. One, you expect coming off an emotional victory, big win like that, there may be a little bit of a lull. And we would kind of struggle out of the gate, but we still have firm control of the game. The fact is, we never had control of the game at all. The defense established no control. So talk to me about this defense, man.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to say, when does it kick in? I know we have unrealistic expectations as Bama fans, and you expect at some point for wheels to fall off, but no disrespect to Clark Lee and his squad, you expect it against a Georgia. You expect it against a Tennessee. You expect that against an LSU. But against a team that you're favored by, I forgot what the line was. It's
23.
23 is, kind of irrelevant.
But you don't expect it coming off a win against Georgia where you showed a half of football to dominate a team like Georgia. But that's the problem, man. Look, say what you will. And this isn't a knock on the guy. He's going to win a lot of football games. But there was something that made Saban special. He didn't lose any of these games. Like, he had his team. He talked about that today on game day, the 24-hour rule, and how he had to evolve as a coach from his time at Michigan State and learn it's more of a process than a thing, than a winning this game or winning that. And that's when they were able to upset Ohio State. Man, not everybody's built that. It's just different. And look, they're kids. We talked about Ryan Williams being 17, and I'm not putting it on Ryan, but we've got to be a lot of young guys on that field that read, we just beat Georgia. We're now number one. We've now got the Heisman. We're playing Vanderbilt. We're favored by 23. We are going to walk on this field and drag our nuts all over them and walk off and go home and call it a victory. That's just how it's going to be. Well, guess what? Vanderbilt came to play football. And I don't care who you are. And that, again, I'm back to what I said about this is what kind of made Nick Saban special. You had 24 hours to celebrate that Georgia win, and then you were getting your ass cussed out for being the worst player on planet Earth because you were about to play Vanderbilt. I think Siskey said it famously. He said the weeks that were the worst were Georgia Southern, where nobody could do anything right. And I'm not saying that that's how you got to do it, but again, man, that team walked out on that field and played a quarter and a half of football like they did. They just thought that they could show up and that crimson jersey was going to win them a football game. Again, I'm not – there's tenets of the 4-2-5 that were in Nick Saban's defense. Every good defense in college football goes to some version of the 4-2-5 at some point. I know we love the 4-3. I know it's built off that. But in the spread offenses, you're going to see a lot of tenets of the 4-2-5. We did face an option tonight, though, where you would expect that older defense – look, it was assignment football. A lot of people reading their damn press clippings and a lot of damn humble pie tonight's the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you would take the baton here and just build off of what Daniel and Jonathan just laid out for you. Where do you see us going from here as a defense? Where's your comfort level and your trustability right now in Kane Womack?
I mean, honestly, I respect what Jonathan and Petty both said, but I'm not going to use the fact that they're young. I understand that they're young, but I feel like we have majority 4- and 5-star players, right? And the guys know how to show up when they want to show up, right? I mean, forget us playing Georgia at home or wherever we play anyone. They know how to play when they want to play. I think that we may have thought that we could just waltz right in there, kind of like we did with Wisconsin, and just I don't know what was going on in terms of coaching. I do think that we should have made some adjustments after halftime, but the one thing that we talked about the entire season so far is just the consistency. And honestly, I believe what we saw tonight, we saw bits and pieces of that in other games. Aside from our game against Western Kentucky, we saw some of these errors, whether it was the penalties, it was just certain things that we've seen bits and pieces of. And it seemed like it all kind of came together and just exploded in this game, And so a part of me, I'm kind of, because I still have respect for Vanderbilt. I mean, they played hard, but they did play dirty. So we got to hold them for that. But I still have some respect for them. But I feel like, I would rather us take the L now, learn from it, and get ready for, because we still got some more big games coming up. And these are adjustments that we're going to have to make. And Kane Womack, he's on that hot seat now. I wouldn't say that he's as bad as, Petey was, but I do. Yeah, he's not as bad as him, but I definitely think that this needs to be that rude awakening where they sit down, stop, going online, doing all this boasting and bragging, but just sit down and really come together and figure out, okay, how can we keep the train rolling? Forget about a top 12. We're not the type of team where we do just enough to make it in the top 12. No, we need to be number one, if not number two. So I think that this is probably what we needed. I hate to say it, but I hate to say it because I want us to win every time, but we have to be real about it. Even as a fan base, we saw all these issues in other games this season, and it finally just exploded because clearly we didn't correct it when we should have. So hopefully we adjust quickly because we got South Carolina coming up. So, and then we got Missouri soon. So
absolutely. Real quick before we move on, I want to give the floor to the people who are giving generously in the super chats. We are very appreciative of everything that you do. We're going to start out with Don Parker, who's been telling us every week. He's been saying, "Look, guys, we may be winning some games, but we're not playing to the standard." Well, Don Parker, your prophecy has definitely been more on the forefront than right now. So $20. I said it all week. Diego Pavia is a baller. Alabama's defense will need to play discipline assignment football. This is exactly why, if you want to be a champion, you play to a standard. Now, tell me where I was telling a lie. Jonathan, you wanted to add something?
No. I agree. But he's a baller. Like we knew that coming in. That's all I was gonna say. That's why I shake my head. Like, yeah, no, absolutely.
Real quick, keep it funky. IRL. Love the screen name. $9.99. Georgia was Bama's Super Bowl. They thought Vanderbilt was a start of the offseason. Laughed my ass off. Okay. And well, let me kind of touch on that. It kind of felt like that Georgia was the Super Bowl. Like we were preparing all season for that one game. And then we just kind of took a break and thought we could just take it easy because we've already beaten the giant in the room. And quite honestly, we don't have another giant, so to speak, to face until we go to Knoxville. And oh my Lord, when that happens. So it kind of has that feel. Before I move to the next super chat, does that kind of resonate with you that maybe we treated Georgia like they were the ultimate Super Bowl and we kind of coasted afterwards?
I mean, I would like to think not, because that's not the Bama way. Like we talk about other teams that do that. They have Alabama circled on their schedule. That's all they're looking forward to. I would just hope that that's not the case. I'm going to say no, because I would hope to think that we still have the standard in that regard where we're looking, at being 1-0 every single weekend, because surely they knew that we were going to have to meet them again in the postseason. Keep our eyes on the prize. So I hope that's not the case.
I'm just questioning because it kind of had that feel. I didn't want to just assume, but with this new staff and a lot of young players like Petty had mentioned before, they're not used to being in these kind of waters. So it is something to consider. But moving right along, keep it funky. IRL $9.99. Do they read super chats? Yeah, we do. And we just had to wait for people to finish with what their sentiments were before we moved on. And we definitely give love to everyone who gives. So thank you again, sir. Don Parker, again, $10. People predicted a blowout today. But today, it's exactly why you play to a standard, don't believe that rat poison, and make week-to-week improvements, horrible performance, and coaching all around. He's going to keep preaching, and maybe we'll listen. JD Long, $4.99. Walmart sucks. Heck, making Pete Golding looking like a genius at this point. Marvin Constant will have something interesting to add to that Tuesday night, so y'all check that out. And keep it funky. I'm loving this. $49.99. Thank you. We greatly appreciate that. That's incredible. Thanks for giving real insight and continue being critical of your team insight and continue being critical of your team. Well, we are going to be critical because that's what we're here for. We're here to break down what we saw, and we're here to give.
No way to sugarcoat a bed shitting to Vanderbilt.
There really isn't.
No, there's not.
I'm sorry. I love.
There's no way.
I love Alabama. I've been a Crimson Tide fan since 1992. Yes, that shows my age, but we're not a place that's going to sugarcoat anything. We're going to tell it like it is. If you don't know what that's like, clearly you haven't watched the Crimson Dynasty or anything that Petty has produced for us, or definitely you haven't watched the Bama Standard. So we are going to criticize it. And let me add, folks, if we as fans pay for tickets and merchandise and we give to Yay Alabama, then we have every right to criticize things because we're giving so this program can continue the success that we're accustomed to. Not trying to bash anybody at all, but we're going to keep it real here. So
tell them we want our money back.
Oh my gosh.
Money back guarantee.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
If you're not satisfied.
And again, I don't want to stomp on Vandy at all, but someone just said in the chat, we don't lose to Vandy. You don't. You don't.
Nope.
Keep it funky, man. We appreciate this. It's kind of helping us here during our time of bereavement.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Another $50 for having the beautiful woman on your podcast.
Well, thank you kindly. Thank you so much.
What about Daniel being a beautiful man? Like, I mean,
I was about to say, I think it helps having a bunch of, all these ugly dudes too.
So let's kind of break it down a little bit further. We like to ask every week what surprised us. I'm sure that we can go through several scenarios here that surprised us. I'll start things out. Honestly, what surprised me was just the lack of discipline and pride in this situation. Lack of being prepared, and then just not taking that time during the game to realize, especially as leaders, that, hey, we're getting embarrassed on a national stage. This ain't us, and we got to correct this immediately. That's kind of where I'm at. I know it's kind of a broad explanation, but CG, start us out. Honestly, what surprised you most of all? Then we'll go to Petty and John.
Yeah, I'm still bothered by the amount of penalties we're getting. It still lets me know it's a discipline issue, sometimes mental errors, but I'm still surprised that we're still having the same issues when it comes to that. Same thing we struggled with last year, to be honest. But then not just that, if I remember correctly, we didn't even have 100 rushing yards, right?
I got that right.
I think it was like 80-ish.
We had 84 total yards, 4 yards.
Yeah, rushing. Right. Now, that's something that I mentioned on Crimson Dynasty this week, that what they did to us, we were supposed to do to them. We should have ran that ball down their throat. Jam Miller, and I know we haven't gotten a player of the game yet, but that's mine, because what he did, we should have continued that. Justice Haynes, we should have literally kept running the ball down their throat, because a part of that run game is managing the clock as well. We struggled with that, with the game management last week as well, and I thought that we were going to correct that this week, but they just literally dominated in that regard. Now, unfortunately, teams like that, when they beat a team like Alabama, they have a few more losses, and it really doesn't account to anything for them and I hate to say it like that, but that goes into them circling Alabama on their calendars, looking forward to that one win. But for us, we have to do a whole overhaul at this point, because we can't do what we did last week. And what really bothers me is that we seem to know what to do when our butts are on the line. We know just in that last couple of minutes, even if that's in the third quarter, we know what to do to make big plays. We saw that when Milroe connected with, Jeremy Bernard or Ryan Williams. But my thing is, like, I don't want us to always have to play from behind like that. You want to play to win. You don't want to play to not lose. And that's what we were doing. We were playing to not lose, And so, I'm just surprised still at the penalties and just the rushing. For us to have the best running backs, like, that's pitiful.
See, you make an excellent point. I'm surprised at the fact that it seems like that we refuse to establish a run game.
Mm-hmm.
As a coach, as an offensive coach,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to find balance in your offense and not be one dimensional. And it seems like we are content being one dimensional, i.e., quick strike, find the big play, run up the score, play ahead, instead of trying to establish a run game. And you can't put all this on Justice Haynes or Jam Miller, because the thing is, they're not being allowed to play their part.
Exactly.
That's what really bothers me, is that this is supposed to be an offense that plays to the skill set of its players. Well, you're only making calls to the skill set of certain players.
Mm-hmm,
it looks like that's Ryan Williams.
Yep.
It looks like that's Jalen Milroe, and it looks like that's occasionally Jeremy Bernard. And hey, we just started using our tight ends, which shout out to CJ Dupree and Josh Cuevas. Freaking fantastic. But it's like, we're gonna make calls according to these guys, but we got arguably the best backfield in the nation, like you said, Cishi, and we're just going to totally neglect those guys and probably risk them going in a portal at some point. But
but you have Vanderbilt's run, you have their run game wearing out our defense, but then you have our offense that can't even manage the clock well enough to where the defense can't. I'm like, you got Vanderbilt working against our defense, and then we're working against our defenses.
Another reason to establish a run game,
Mm-hmm.
run clock, establish a long drive, sustained drive to keep that defense who's getting gassed and that is already having problems getting in their own way, keep them off the field and try to establish something. You can't tell me at some point that with the pounding of a Justice Haynes or Jam Miller, or even maybe Richard Young, depending on how his health level is right now, that eventually one of those backs, if not two of them, are going to eventually burst free and wear them down. But thing is, we're never going to know that because our coordinators are not calling those plays. Listen, I'm taking up too much time. Petty, take over. What surprised you other than what we just talked about?
Yeah, but man, they dictated the game. We were playing catch up because we were behind. We had to throw the ball. And when you got the ball for 42 minutes, you can't really establish a run. You're having to throw to play catch up. But the thing I'm shocked about is when the game was on the line, and this is when I expect Bama to be Bama, like last week. You know, you had the big lead, you blow the big lead, they score, but you still make the big play. When the game was on the line, they ran through our ass like shit through a tin horn, like Saban loves to fucking say. You know, that was the thing. Like, I expected, get the stop. Okay, 5 minutes to go. You need 2 scores. You get that score quick. You get the ball back. And that's when I'm expecting, okay, 3 timeouts. Bama's defense stands up and gets the stop that's needed. And they just ran through our ass and couldn't even, it's like they just dictated the game. And that's what surprised me the most, that when the game was finally on the line, we played like shit all day. It's like, but okay, we're going to go steal this. We're going to get the ugly win. We're going to learn the lesson, but we're still going to learn the lessons in an ugly ass W. But no, they dictated it and just ran on down the field and took the game.
And Petty, I do agree with the point you made of playing from behind, but in the first quarter, the second quarter, and then midway through the third quarter, you're still not trying to establish any run whatsoever.
Look, man, there's no way to deny it, Justin. You look at the stat sheet 2 weeks in a row, and you see Jam and Justice with 5 and 6 carries apiece 2 weeks in a row, and that can't happen. You've got to get those. And again, I know this was a weird one with time of possession and you don't have as many plays to run, but no, you've got to get those guys because look, early in the game, Jam Miller was running good. Hell, when he did get his opportunities, Miller was popping it. So, hey, maybe that does change time of possession. You know, let me backtrack on my own damn self because I'm thinking about this. We're all dealing with this shit in real time. I haven't had a chance to watch this game. But if you think about it, yeah, you are playing from behind, but you're not playing from 24 points behind. You're playing from 2 scores behind. So from going from the big strike, why not have an 8-minute possession that has some running? And I don't know, man. You do question it at some point. We're 5 games into the season, 6 games in, and we've yet to establish a running game in any of them where it's a consistent running game that can eat clock for 5-6 minutes at a possession. We haven't done it this year.
Jonathan, we've said a lot right here. What surprised you? We've covered the lack of establishing a run to no end, but go ahead.
Non-statistically, I'll say this. Something that's been brought to every single game that wasn't brought to this game was energy. Literally, you look at every game, they're hyped, they're joking, they're laughing, they're having fun, it looks like. In this game, it looks like they were literally hungover from the night before. It looks like they just weren't taking this game serious. Now, one thing you guys are talking about is complimentary football. What's the best way to help your defense is keep the offense on the field to let these guys rest and game plan and figure out what's Vanderbilt doing. So like Petty said, you may be 2 scores behind, but if you can give yourself a couple of those drives, it gives that chance, the defense a chance to take a breath, to readjust, to make whatever adjustments they need to make. But no, we didn't do that. We continue to play high tempo. We can, continue to, in this instance, dig our own grave through the whole game. Because me and Justin was, messaging back and forth. I'm like, no, bro, we'll adjust. But I never saw the adjustments. I'm like, maybe we're not going to adjust. I don't know. And I think one of the most overlooked things in this game that has yet to be talked about by anybody on Twitter that I've seen so far, how important is K-Law's blocking at the receiver position?
I mentioned that to you in the chat earlier today, that having him out, even if he's not catching passes, what he brings non-statistically to the game is so critical because he springs a lot of explosive plays, and we missed that today.
But did you catch Caleb Odom out there blocking though?
Yeah, but he's not the best blocker.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless him, man. He's a young guy, but he's not a guy like a Kendrick Law who can.
Kendrick Law.
He bench presses 450 pounds and squats 600. That makes up for a lot right there. And not to take anything away from Caleb Odom, but there's a big difference in ability to put people on their tail. But go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, and No, and at the end of the day, you've seen the complete opposite look at this offense, to where it used to be run setting up the pass, and now it seems to be pass trying to set up a run. And you guys made great points. There was a couple runs in this game where we gashed them, and I was like, okay, we're going to continue running the ball, right? And then we would throw the ball 3 times in a row, and I'm like, I now no longer understand this scheme. And really, if you want to, and I started thinking more and more and more, and before we get on here, I'm like, you know what? All you have to do is go back and watch the Washington games. And I feel like this is almost a product of what Kalen brought over from Washington. But the difference is that Washington, he didn't really have a good running back. And that was their excuse of not really going to the running back. That's not the case here. You have great running backs, right? Your only excuse would be, okay, can our offensive line run block? Well, that seems to be a strength, right? So I think most of us can agree to that. So in my opinion, there's no excuse to try to establish the run. It's confusing me. I don't know if it's because, like, I forget which one of you said, but like, are we trying to appease certain people? You know what I mean? And just not go to others. Kobe Prentice, in my opinion, has not been looked at all season. Like, I don't understand it. I'd have to go back and watch the All 22 film and figure out what went on in this game. I mean, there's a lot that went on, to be honest with you, but.
And I'm not quite sure. Did Kobe return after that big hit?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
Well, that's another piece taken out of the offense, that where it's a major player that didn't allow us to do more. But still, here's the issues. All right, before we move on to the next topic, we got some more super chats. Again, thank you to everyone who's doing this and being so generous to this show. First of all, we got Jeff Merriman, $9.99. We greatly appreciate that. And then we got Hubert, 33-43. Looking at Malachi throw a temper tantrum at the end of the game shows there is no discipline. You make a mistake and Kalen has a blank stare. This is on coaches. All right, real quick, Sishi, I'll let you kind of tackle this. Where do you place this? Is this all on the coaching staff? Is this on players, or is it kind of a balance? What do you see?
Yeah, well, I feel like leadership and discipline starts at the top. So that's your coaches. That's Coach DeBoer. We remember with Coach Saban on the field, and I know he's kind of got away from that towards the end of his tenure, but we remember those times when he would be acting a fool on that sideline and how that would impact the players, and if the coach is out there with no energy, just kind of, he almost looked like it was a scrimmage to some degree. When I would see Coach DeBoer at different times throughout the game, he almost kind of had that scrimmage type vibe. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, he almost seemed a little confused, but I would blame the coaches for sure, especially, even offensively, we weren't bad per se, but I feel like the correct play calling would have had a lot more plays on the ground, not necessarily by Milroe, but, of course, Justice and Jam. So I do heavily put it on the coaches, especially defensively. Like, that was horrible. But
you also mentioned a very important part in terms of players. That sideline for Alabama looked absolutely dead. There was no energy. People were not getting in each other's faces. They were not challenging each other. And that's something we've kind of had a gripe about for the past several seasons. There just hasn't been that. When you're on the road and you're getting your tail handed to you, especially by a team that you have no business being dominated by, this is where you say, enough's enough. You guys quit screwing up, play to the standard, and get fired up. I'm watching on the sidelines. You got people over there kind of smiling and laughing and joking, looking like they're just hanging out. But meanwhile, the school board says, we're down by two scores, and we can't stop them from scoring. Again, they only punted twice.
Did we ever have the lead?
No, we never had the lead in this game. All right, here's something to consider. This is another reason why we have issues as far as being focused. This overpaid NIL Bama team just lost to Vandy. I'm sick to my stomach. And that's another thing, the distraction of NIL, the distraction of giving all these players podcasts and all these expensive things, buying each other jewelry that's like they just won the title, and the rest of the season just was meaningless. But there's a lot of distractions there. We won't go down that rabbit hole. We're sticking to this game. Don Parker, $5. Not so fun fact. Vandy scored 23 points in the first half under Saban, 13 points total. SMH. We got _ Ollie 999. Bama wouldn't have to stop Jimmy Carter in his wheelchair. He would have rolled for 200 yards tonight. We'll bounce back. Still tied still.
Some bad defense.
That's yeah.
I love the word it's rolled his way to 200 yards.
Rolled. Biggie Bull 999, not a Bama fan, but I don't like how Bama fans were talking like y'all didn't blow a 28-point lead. Like wins don't show deficiencies. Like South Alabama defensive coordinator was going to save y'all humble week. Actually, Biggie Bull, we talked about that last week, even in the post game, all throughout the week on our various shows. That you win, but there's still losses. It took a desperation catch by Ryan Williams and then an interception at the very end to seal the deal. We blew a 28-point lead. The deficiencies were there. Like I said, we are a channel that's going to call stuff out. We don't just celebrate victories and act like other things didn't happen, because they did. And a lot of that manifested today. But thank you for that super chat. Matt Bray, 999. Fans raved about Kalen DeBoer getting after the refs last week, but he needs to put some of that energy towards the players. Way too quiet when our senior safety kicked the ball and got unsportsmanlike conduct. Jordan Kane, 499. Vandy ran the option to perfection. Nobody really does the option anymore. I think we're going to be fine, but the play with very little intensity. That absolutely.
Well, look, that's the salve to that. Look, man, I know it's pretty damn bleak right now. It's hard to look at anything that's make any kind of lemonade out of the lemons that is losing to damn Vanderbilt at Vandy. But we're in the playoff era, guys. You lose to Vandy any other year in your program history, and guess what? It's over. You're not winning titles. You're not winning SEC. You're not winning shit. But guess what? Now you can, because this is still the team that was capable of beating Georgia. We've seen it with our own eyes. This team has the ability to beat anybody in college football. It beat the best. Yeah, it lost to Vanderbilt, but guess what? We have playoffs now. You take care of business from here on out. This is the wake-up call it needs to be, and this is just a damn distant memory in 7 weeks.
Can't talk. Tall boy Rude. Interesting. 199. We lose one game. Y'all start fire him talk. SMH link. We're not saying fire anybody at all. We're just
he's talking about if you're scrolling through
the comments.
We're ready to fire everybody.
And then Jordan Kane just decided to throw a little bit of change our way. We greatly appreciate that. So we're trying to get to all of you. Please forgive us if we haven't yet. We will definitely make it our point to talk to everyone tonight. So let's go on. I know this part right here is going to be hard to talk to really produce, right? Positive takeaways and not so positive takeaways. I think if we talk about the not so positive, we're going to be here all night, and we've done a pretty good job of already exposing those. So let's just limit this to the positive takeaways. What positive do you take from this, as hard as it is to see right now because lost to Vandy? But Cici, what positive takeaways do you have from here?
I mean, the only thing I can really I'm trying so hard not to laugh.
I know you are.
I'm trying so hard not to laugh. That's why I have to keep muting. I know, because I have to keep muting myself because I want to burst out laughing. I mean, okay, Ryan Williams is still him.
Right.
Positive. Okay, he's still him.
Oh, yeah.
I was proud of Damani Jackson. I saw some good plays from him in the first half. I just, Jam Miller, I'm still happy with what I see from him and Justice. I just, we need to see more of them in a game instead of spreading it out across the whole season. More than 5 or 6 carries. And then Jalen, I'm searching. Jalen Milroe, I was pleased with some of his passes. I do think he kind of stayed in the pocket a little bit too long. Maybe it was the O-line a little bit, Pritchard. But yeah, I ain't gonna say no names. But other than that, the defense tried to do a little something in that last 1 or 2 possessions that they had, but it was a day late and $1 too short. So,
Petty, any positives?
I'm not an Auburn fan. That's what I got.
And they're in the chat right now, Petty, too.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely in the chat and completely disregarding. what's going on in
Ryan
their lives.
Williams, his body control is unlike anything I've ever seen. He continues to show it every week. That play on the sideline was unbelievable. Milroe didn't play a bad game. The offense didn't quit. There's no positives. It's lost to Vanderbilt. The positives there is a playoff system and there is a chance at redemption. Now the question is, do you man up and take advantage of it or not? That's the positive. It's not over.
And folks, Petty and Cici made a great point here. Don't let what Jalen Milroe was able to do get lost in all this. He still played he played well enough to win. He still played at the high level, and he has played with very much improvement. He's not the same quarterback last year. And I saw at times during this game where he started to kind of maybe revert, but then he stopped himself and he said, you know what, I'm not that anymore. I'm going to still go in the upward trend that I'm showing to everybody. But I think a lot of what he did tonight is going to get overlooked and he's going to get unfairly criticized. Well, and the reality is he didn't do anything. The interception, you can't credit to him. It bounced off of someone's hands and landed perfectly in the defender's hands. They're just like last week.
Yep.
But John, positive takeaways other than the few that we just mentioned, if any?
My positive takeaways is going to be two things. Number one, we're about to really find out what Kalen DeBoer is about, right? So I think from that perspective, and I think this coaching staff has plenty of teaching moments now for this entire week. I think there should be no shortage of energy and attention given to the defense this entire week. And I think they're probably going to see this blasted and posted, if Kalen DeBoer is smart, in my opinion, everywhere throughout every practice to remind them what can happen if they don't come with the right mindset.
Couldn't agree more. And honestly, I think that this team performs at a much higher level if it has a chip on its shoulder, because we are 4 years removed from a national championship.
Yep.
These guys haven't accomplished that or anything close to that. Yeah, we've had a few SEC championships. That's great, but you haven't gotten to that level yet. So you're not the Alabama right now. So don't buy into what you're not. I like it better when you're told, you know what, y'all aren't Bama anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I like it better when the talk of the dynasty is falling is going on and you're under the radar. That's what makes you fight harder. And I feel like that was all tossed aside because no one believed in us going into Georgia. And we fought and we proved ourselves in that game. But as soon as all that chatter came right back, all that was lost.
One more, fun fact. Diego Pavia is the only quarterback in college football history, by the way, to beat 3 top 25 teams when they were more than 20-point underdogs. He beat Auburn a couple of years ago with New Mexico State. Keep that in mind.
Put that on, for the Aflac down the road.
Yeah, there you go.
We got some super chats to get to. David Kendall, $2. Fire the whole team except for Hollywood.
Just let him throw it to himself.
Yep. 334 go $4.99. That was KD's ULM. Hopefully he goes and wins 6+ natties RTR. God,
I was about to say what?
I have no idea right now at this point. My mind is definitely not where it should be. Should be celebrating a victory, but that didn't happen. Gavin Kane, $4.99. Guys, I cannot believe what I just saw. Defense is atrocious. Milroe has played great. Not on him at all. This BS is on Kane. Take him back to Mobile. Can't wait to see the reactions from the rest of our panel this coming week. It's going to be
I'll be
interesting.
Pro Marvin. I may start poking Marvin and just see what his thoughts are. I'm sure he's fired up.
All right. So he was on social media with videos earlier, so I can only imagine what that's going to be like. All right. So let's go. Here's the big question. Every week we like to talk about where does Alabama go from here? What's our comfort level in our team as we enter into next week's opponent? Well, things are getting a little bit more crazy now that Vandy has upended Alabama. South Carolina's coming to town. Petty, you were able to watch South Carolina today because the Ole Miss Rebels took them on. And from what I was seeing in between Alabama playing, you handled your business.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of questioning what our mindset's going to be. I'm kind of questioning now, how does this team respond? And also, too, I want to put something else on it. How critical are these games now? Because you don't expect to drop to Vandy, but you leave room for error where you play Tennessee or you play an LSU on the road, and this kind of makes things a little bit more, I don't want to say dire, but we have no room for error. I feel like if we lose one more, then we are definitely under the gun and we can't lose another. So let's talk about going forward. Let's touch on South Carolina and let's touch on that other part. Start us out, John, then go to Petty and then to Sishi.
I don't feel good, to be completely honest with you. I feel the offense is good. South Carolina, I'm not going to say, oh, it's South Carolina, because I just made a bet. I just lost $300 on this game with Vandy, right? So I'm done doing that number for this year. I'm looking, though, at people like Oklahoma that has a running quarterback that can throw the ball. And you know what I mean? And I believe South Carolina has possibly two of the best edge defenders in the nation right now, which worries me a little bit. But moving forward, I feel good about the offense. I feel like we're stable there. But the defense, I don't know what it's going to look like. I just wish I could see some in-game adjustments to this defense, and I hope it starts to happen sooner than later.
Patty, pick it up. Let's address South Carolina, and let's also address the long-term picture here. I know a lot of this is just knee-jerk reaction, but you saw South Carolina today. But regardless of what happened in that game, the fact is they've got a running quarterback. They got a guy who's a great athlete, but they also have Rocket Sanders too. We couldn't stop the running game of one man today. And how do you feel having seen that and then watching South Carolina today? And go ahead, brother.
I'll be honest. I think it's the perfect get-right game. I don't think South Carolina is a good matchup for Bama. I think Bama is a great matchup for South Carolina. Those defensive ends are completely negatable. I was worried about them as an Ole Miss fan after I watched what Kentucky do to Ole Miss's offensive line. Ole Miss completely negated the two defensive ends today with a run game up the middle. But Bama's got to commit to the run up the middle and move your blocking points. On the flip side, Lenora Sellers is all they've got. They don't have receivers, so you're able to play man coverage and really go against the run. And Rocket Sanders isn't the running back he was 2 years ago. He's a little hobbled. It's not the same run game as Vandy. It's not going to be that option. It's more you can stack the line of scrimmage and just kind of plug it up versus having to watch the dive, watch the quarterback, watch the pitch man. It's not as exotic. It's a lot more defendable. I actually think this is a game where the score doesn't even indicate how bad Ole Miss missed 2 touchdowns. That game was actually probably 41-3 at the end of it. So this is a game Bama dominates and gets right, but you got to look forward. You can't lose again. The problem is with 2 losses, that Vandy wart's going to look bad when you're battling other teams, because I think the problem is we're going to get a quagmire of 10-2 teams in the SEC at some point, and then it becomes the debate of what your losses look like. You reel that Vandy loss ain't going to look good. So, but with that said, I think the schedule is manageable. I think Oklahoma's scary, of course, going on the road at LSU, but LSU has no defense. The scariest game on that schedule right now is Tennessee. That's the one you got to take care of. They're in a dogfight right now on the road at Arkansas. That's to say, man, this SEC is just not clear cut. Just because you lose a game against Vanderbilt, that doesn't mean you can't get your shit back together again. This is a team that's capable of beating Georgia. It is a lot harder, and your room for error, your margin for error just shrunk. You can't. You got to win them all. But go take care of South Carolina. Pull off what's going to be an upset, because you're now going to be underdogs in Knoxville. Pull off that upset, and then the whole season's in front of you. And it's just an ugly wart on a season that you can still turn into something that's what you wanted it to be all along.
Okay. Sishi?
Yeah, I mean, so we have South Carolina next weekend, right? I think that's the perfect game for us to establish the run, which we should have already done. But we can, use this game to see even Richard Young get out there, get some yards on the ground, because then we go to Tennessee, of course, and that's going to be a showdown. But then we have Missouri for our homecoming. And then, a month from now, you have the playoff committee releasing the first ranking. So us going back, looking at South Carolina, because I believe we're their second road road game. I think they had Kentucky and they won that game. And so just kind of seeing how they won that game versus how they almost beat LSU at home, just kind of looking at some of their, their film and figuring out what we're going to do moving forward as far as our defense. Because what we saw tonight basically looked like the adjustments that Georgia made last week in the second half. And to be honest, had we not had that big of a lead against Georgia like we had, we could have seen an L last week as well. And so I think this is going to come down to the coaches sitting their butts down and realizing that that's on them too. But then the players becoming more disciplined, forgetting about all this NIL stuff, because this whole week, that's all they wanted to talk about. Even, in the football space, just about the NIL evaluation of different players going up. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean anything if you don't have a W, by each game. So I think with South Carolina established a run, get this defense solidified, but then also getting ready for Tennessee, of course, Missouri at home. So, I mean, I was planning to go to home. I thought about going to homecoming, but I just, I don't know. We got some stuff to work on, but yeah. So.
I feel you. It's not a good place to be. It's something as we as Bama fans haven't really known a lot about for several years. So this is just a result of something we're unfamiliar with, but that doesn't mean it's going to become the norm. So let's move on to players of the game. I think this should be pretty easy considering there was just a few that really made a significant difference and tried their best to affect the outcome of this game, but we're still going to name them nonetheless. Start us out, John, then go to Petty and then Sishi.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Jalen Milroe on the offense. I think he did great. You can't go wrong with naming him or Williams, obviously. And, I know the defense is going to catch a lot of crap, but Jahad Campbell came up with like 11 or 12 tackles, 1.5 for loss. Like that dude was trying to do everything he possibly could, as gassed as he was. Yeah, that'd be my players. And Burnip, great job punting the ball. We needed you today. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we'll go with that as well.
Betty?
I think the equipment managers and the water boys had a hell of a day getting liquid and nourishment to our guys. When they hit the sideline, our guys didn't lack for water bottles. They were there. They were squirted. There was just no lack for hydration today, and that's a testament to hard work of all the guys that, keeping that H2O coming. Because outside of that, we just pissed it all over the field, and nobody deserves a damn participation trophy when you lose to Vanderbilt. So none of you guys get one today. Congratulations.
Sishi, please follow up. Feel free to go on one of your treasured rants. This is definitely the time and place for it. But feel free to proceed however you choose. But yeah, players of the game, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, offensively, I would have to go with Ryan Williams for sure. And then defensively, Jahad Campbell. And then I would also have to say that Auburn, they should be the last ones talking. I mean, this is how many losses they have so far. I mean, they just, I don't see how they have enough courage, like that courage that they have to show up in the chat of a team that's better than them year in and year out, where we could literally wipe the floor with them, but then they show up in people's chats. Like Georgia just whooped y'all. Y'all got beat by Cal. You just get beat by everybody. You throw multiple interceptions in one game. Like y'all suck, but y'all the main ones coming up in people's chats, running y'all's mouth. I mean, it's just it don't get no better than that. But see, that's what you see when a team has accepted failure as their destiny, right? Like that doesn't sit well with us. We're looking ahead. We're trying to see what's going to happen next, what we're going to do to fix things. They've accepted failure because that's what they do. They fail. So I mean, I don't know. I hate that we lost, but I think that maybe that's what we needed. I mean, it is what it is.
Here's something I think that we didn't take into account. We talked about Kendrick Law not being present, but Bama X just brought up a very good point. Not having Justin Jefferson was evident in the game tonight. Touch on what kind of difference he possibly could have made here. I mean, Jahad Campbell tried to do everything by himself, and so did Malachi Moore. But what does Justin Jefferson possibly add that maybe could have turned this in a different direction? Petty? you look a little bit outdone. So, Jonathan,
No, Jefferson would have been responsible for the middle. You know what I mean? It would have freed up Lawson to the edge. So when you look at it from that perspective, the gap is most likely the gaps would have been a little more sound. We would have won the game. I'm not going to speculate on that because I hate speculating on what ifs and all that stuff. I don't do that. But no, Jefferson he's a game changer, right? So I think it's evident. I think we've known that from the beginning. He's not highlighted a lot because he's not going to be in the stats a lot. Like I like James Smith. He's not going to be statistically up there either, but he does things that most people don't want to do, and that's the same thing with Jefferson. And it's evident, and not everybody likes those roles, and they don't like playing those roles. So,
I got you. We got a couple of super chats before we start to close things out. Let's see. We got Don Parker. My only positive take. Unfortunately, I have been right all season. We now will see who wants to really be sci-fi or just in for the ride. Very well said. Don Parker, $2. Marvin, get the T-shirt.
Oh, man.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with what Don Parker is talking about, a couple of years back, Marvin was completely outdone with both Pete Golding and Bill O'Brien. So he printed up T-shirts that said "Fire Pete" and "Fire Bob." So
we're 5 games in and we're firing up the T-shirt machine.
Getting the presser, getting it ready. So, but tune in Tuesday. You never know. Marvin might start printing them out. And then we got the Cat Boys, $4.99. I just jumped on and I already know the chats have been blaming Milroe the entire time per usual. Cat Boys, I haven't really looked at the chat as much, but I'm going to go on the record as we all have already in reiterating this loss is not placed on Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe did absolutely everything he could do given what he had to work with. If not for Pritchett missing that block, that was a drive where momentum was changing and we were going down to possibly score. Had that block been kept, I don't deal on what ifs, but it gives us a better chance. So no one's blaming Jalen Milroe. He played a great game.
I did. I was wondering why he didn't come out and play defense too. He was doing so well.
Well, there's that.
Can he not play both ways?
Hey, if one thing ain't working, change
Travis
it up.
Hunter does it.
All right, I'm going to stay out of here. Oh, well, we're not going to talk about negative. We have done enough of that because there's blaming Milroe that is populating. And again, we don't blame Jalen Milroe here.
No, that's dumb. That's dumb. That's real dumb. Like there's a lot of things you can blame, but that if you're blaming Milroe now, you're dumb. You're not a smart football person. And I'm sorry. I'm telling you that. You're not good at this.
Yeah, he's not the catch-all anymore for any time something does not go our way. Now you could argue last year possibly as he was having his growing pains and dealing with the offensive coordinator who didn't know how to use him and didn't really fully believe in him. And then you can go back 2 years ago when he had Bill O'Brien who told him that he was better served being a running back or a tight end. Okay, maybe you could do that, but now. No, it's a different game with him. He's progressed. He's gone to that next level. And until proven otherwise, that's what I'm going to stick with. Anything y'all want to add? No. Okay. Well, we got another super chat. Cat Boys, the fans don't watch the offensive line. No, they don't watch things like that. Well, we do. But anyway.
Let me just say this. The 4-2-5 defense works when it creates turnovers. That's the simplistic version of this defense. Since the first game against Western Kentucky, where's the turnovers? Plain and simple.
Yeah, right. All right. I think we've said pretty much all that can be said. We will have more accumulate as we get to digest this more and think about it. So that is a great opportunity for everyone who is in the chat, especially if this is your first time. I want you to hit that like and subscribe button. But you see that little ticker down there? We have other shows on this network. If you want to dig in deeper with this whole show that we saw at Nashville today, feel free to return on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on to get your feel from all of us. We'll have plenty to say. Oh, yeah, tomorrow night as well. But let's go around the room. We've been here long enough, and the more that we talk about it, I feel like the matter will get. So we're going to push pause for now, and then we'll go to our individual shows next week. So I'm going to pass it around the room right now and let everyone pop what they got, including their shows and how they can find you on social media. CC started out, then go to Petty, then up to Jonathan.
Yeah, you can catch me every Wednesday here on the Bama Standard Network. My show, the show that I host is called Crimson Dynasty. Every Wednesday night, 6:30 Central Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Wednesday night. And then you can find me. We may have a new show airing this week, possibly Thursday morning, but you all will see a premiere for that. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And then you can find me on Instagram at beauty_of_intelligence.
Absolutely. And one thing we're definitely going to address, we didn't talk about tonight, what this loss could possibly have on the effect it could have on recruiting. So stay tuned for that. And we got a super chat again from Don Parker, $2. Turnovers. Where was the pass rush? Great question. Petty, how can they find you? And what all do you have going on in your world?
You can find me having a bourbon right now, and I'm probably going to have a few more before this damn night ends. But after that, you can catch me on Monday at 7 p.m. Central on the opening kick with my man Gerald Smoke Dixon. We'll be breaking down the craziness of the weekend, which I can't imagine what's going to be more crazy than what we just witnessed. So, but it has been a nuts weekend. But we talked the whole gamut of college football. Have a lot of fun guests. But hey, check us out Monday. I'm sure we're going to be recapping this game a little bit more before we move on to some of the bigger games next week. And then on Tuesday at 8 Central, you can catch me with the final whistle. Matt Caddell, Chris James, Lushawn Graves, Ty Hayes, Dan James, man, the whole crew will be there talking about God knows what and getting you ready for the Alabama-South Carolina game. Look, man, got to turn the page. That's the one thing about it. If we learned anything from Saban, 24-hour rule. By tomorrow at this time, this shit's over and we're moving forward. So that's what we're going to do on this network. Catch me at Monday, 7 o'clock.
Sounds great. Jonathan Lewis.
X, I always want to call it Twitter, at Bama Nation John. And then obviously me, Cici, Daniel, and Ty will most likely be starting a show this Thursday morning on Roll Tide Cafe at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 Eastern. And I'll be posting videos on there every now and then with all three of them or whoever wants to jump on with random videos throughout the week as well to keep everybody's interest up on the channel and throughout all the shows. So, yep.
And I am Justin Riley, your host. I want to remind everyone to tune in to the Bama Standard, our flagship show. That's Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, with my colorful co-hosts, Marvin Constant. You definitely don't want to miss what he's going to say Tuesday night. It'd be well worth the price of admission, along with Steve Brown, Stephen M. Smith, and Gerald Smoke Dixon. Now, since South Carolina's coming to town, we're going to have an expert on there. He actually is in the South Carolina Gamecock Hall of Fame, and he covers Alabama, coincidentally, and that's none other than Corey Miller. He'll be here on Tuesday giving you everything that he took away from this game and then what to expect from South Carolina. He'll be holding no punches back. He'll be telling it like it is, just like Marvin. Y'all are going to want to see this, maybe make you feel a little bit better. But as Petty said, 24-hour rule, now we turn the page. And the question is, how we write the next chapter. We shall soon see. But again, tomorrow night, if you want to talk about this some more, breakdown, tune in to Sunday Night Talking Bama. That's 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern with Josh Tucker, Justin J.B. Bain, and Stephen M. Smith, and Marshall Bean. And Petty already told you, Monday night we got the opening kick at 7 p.m. Central. And then she's going to be back here on Wednesday night previewing South Carolina with a nice breakdown. And y'all better listen to what she's telling you and who to watch out for. She gave you a good clue as to how this game might unfold this past Wednesday. So pay attention. But that's going to do it for all of us here at the Bama Standard Post-Game Show. Again, we greatly appreciate everyone for being with us tonight in this, what turned out to be a therapy session. But listen, we're not going to give up. We're not going to give out. We're still Alabama, and we will see you on some of our other shows. Until then, roll tide.
Roll Tide.